So again, just because time's pressing on a little bit, if we can move over to Chris Boardman for a roundup of what's happened in his world since we last met in September. Okay, over to you, Chris.
Good evening. I knew John would do that, actually. I've had a phone call with him, and I actually worked out halfway through he doesn't actually breathe, which is amazing. But so many well encapsulated points that we need that, and we need people like that. There's not many around. I think I worked it out, it's about 1.7 billion extra miles being driven around homes in Greater Manchester. That's a 44% increase, I think it is, in 10 years. And that's what I'm outraged about, actually, not a modal filter. I'm outraged that that's been done without consultation. And I'm outraged that we have to fight for it to get it back. Anyway, I thought this was going to be really quick, but there is actually tons of stuff to tell you. So I'm going to batter through it as quickly as I can. Probably only take 2 or 3 minutes, but there's a lot. So you're going to have to try and keep up. Real success stories, I think, with Tranche 1. I know it was messy. It was messy all over the country, but we did get some real success stories with the Active Travel Fund Tranche 1. Some of that infrastructure is now going to be made permanent because it was done. Northern Quarter particularly, at last, absolutely brilliant. Businesses there are really happy with it as well. Deansgate, 2, more on that in a moment. That's had a little bit of a hiccup, but only a hiccup. The Tranche 2 funds that just been announced, we got £19 million for those active travel measures, those extra funds. That's the largest figure outside of London, and we got more than we asked for. I'm going to talk about in the next few days, or rather the districts will, what they're going to be doing with that. But a lot of them are going to be made permanent. So those announcements are just coming up shortly. So that extra £2 million that we've got, it's a fantastic problem to have, actually, getting more than you actually asked for. So, and I think it shows national government that they've got confidence now in Greater Manchester's, both their ambition and the fact that we've spent 2 years ramping up, getting ready to deliver. We've got 10 times more people working on this now than we did 2 years ago, which is brilliant. And it's starting to come to fruition. So that slog's happened, and it starts to be talked about 2021 as the year of delivery, because that's what it looks like it's going to be. 55 miles of schemes will be delivered, worth around £85 million by next Christmas, this time next year. It's not the amount that we need it much faster, but it's still a pretty bloody healthy chunk. So I'm pleased we're off at last and talking about tangible stuff. Talking about tangible, Chorlton Area 3's consultation is now live. Works beginning on that imminently on Area 2. Should be complete by spring. Oldham are on site with the 2 bridge upgrades around King Street and Union Street West near Oldham Town Centre. Completion on that is expected in early 21. Manchester's Beswick Crossing package now has full business case approval, so that's cracking on. Rochdale Castleton scheme expected to go out to consultation at last. So real moves in Rochdale. There's some good people embedded in that system, and I think a little bit of publicity's really helped them along. Stockport ramping up delivery with their schemes on site, including the UK's first parallel signalised crossing in Gilbert Road. And that was allowed, DfT allowed us to fiddle around with the use of zigzags for that one. So it's a bit of another Manchester first. And that crossing sort of replaces an existing puffing crossing, but provides new segregated signalised crossing. The other Stockport scheme on site is Bramall Park and the Heaton's Cycle Link. A further 2 Stockport schemes are expected to be on site this month on the A6. They're the links. It's a kind of a multi-user path on the Manchester Airport Relief Road, plus the Offerton to Stockport route. Manchester's Northern Quarter I mentioned earlier, Thomas Street and Ducey Street, those trial closures to vehicles because of the Active Travel Fund, they're now proposed to be permanent, which is brilliant. And Deansgate, they are looking to make a big chunk of that permanent, so big steps forward there. They are going to open it temporarily for a bus route, but only temporarily. In Wigan, they're about to go to consultation. In fact, I think they might have already gone to consultation on the Wigan Pier scheme, that segregated route that connects the town centre. Tameside, they're in the process of putting in a temporary lane along the A635. Salford, full approval granted for their Swinton Greenway, which is really nice. Had a good look at that at the October GMCA meeting, so that's on the horizon. Salford's been very active in the active travel fund schemes, with a number of road reallocation schemes on their books too. Cyclops junctions, we all have come to love those. Royce Road one is obviously in, it's working well, and it's already received an award from Brake. Bolton's is following shortly. They hope to complete theirs in January, and Bury will be starting work on their first Cyclops, which will be near the town centre early next year. Salford's on site in the new year on the Trafford Road scheme, and that's going to include 6 Cyclops junctions, which is pretty cool. We've had inquiries about this design all around the country. Lancashire, Cambridge. Cambridge are obviously now building one as well as we speak. Liverpool, St Helens, Cardiff. But what I think is pretty cool is we've got inquiries from around the world. We've had inquiries from Bern in Switzerland, Michigan, Ottawa, Dublin. So that's quite nice to be involved in something. So hats off to the TFGM team who came up with that design. So active neighbourhood's been a lot about that in the chat, and obviously John's just been telling us about his experience. So we're supporting Manchester City Council, who generally want to deliver a good scheme, particularly in Levensham. I've been watching the chat on that. We've got to see the results of the consultation, which have just closed, but we will have our input to make sure that it is the design quality is high. As people here know, that's my job. I don't have control of the roads, but I have control of the rules and the cash. And we don't fund anything that won't work. So I've got high hopes for that one. So that consultation, as I said, it just closed. Trafford St Urmston's consultation is now live. Bury are progressing a small active neighbourhood scheme in the Garside Hay area, and that's going to be complete in January. Salford's, I think it's Aldsall's active neighbourhood, that's out for consultation at the moment. TFGM's active neighbourhood project, which is managed by Sustrans and Arup, that's going well. 2 consultations, Stockport and Bury, due to go live very soon. There should be around 30 active neighbourhoods up and running next year. So John's just alluded to, you know, there's been some pretty spun press out recently. They've suddenly become a battleground, active neighbourhoods, to actually keep the traffic on them, which is pretty crazy state of affairs. Imagine looking on the human species from the outside and trying to understand this one. To counteract that, but I think more to help people understand, really, we're going to show as many positive stories from people who already live and already love living on filtered neighbourhoods, whether they know it as an active neighbourhood or not. Most, of course, won't. It's just normal for them. It's a cul-de-sac and you can't drive down that road. So we're doing some work on that right now. There are hundreds of existing modal filters and low traffic neighbourhoods already in Greater Manchester. And I've noticed on Twitter that Graham Cooper, aka Bicycle Riding Motorist, has been getting stuck into that. I saw his map this morning as I was browsing social media, identifying modal filters in Bolton. Fantastic piece of work, really helpful there. And you start to see, actually, we make those cycle friendly and we start to join them up, we're already there. So that was really helpful. So a bit of a call to action, please. If anyone in any other district can help us identify these, please do, and get in touch. Kirsty's email address is going to go in the chat. I think Claire's going to put that up. Better still, if you know someone who already lives on those streets that don't allow through traffic, ask them to get in touch with Kirsty to be interviewed, because we want to tell those stories as well. I'm nearly at the end now. Bike hire, just to say that we've got 4 tenders now that we're in the process of reviewing, really strong international suppliers, and they are about 1,000 pages for them to wade through. So that's looking good. Side roads study, that too is back on track after COVID. A lot of more news to come on that in January. And we'll have a website, so I don't have to do this again, that will host all of this information by the end of January, from schemes, imagery, stories, everything else. We need a bit of help with testing on that. not necessarily from you guys who know all about it. Those support's good. So if anyone can think of some GM-based friends or family that aren't particularly engaged with cycling and walking yet, get in touch with Kirsty and the comms team, and she wants to make sure that this site works for them. The end. There you go.
Okay, great. Thanks, Chris. We haven't got an awful lot of time for questions, but I think
No, I know.
Just kind of pulling things together that have kind of come out in the chat this evening, and that's in terms of monitoring, feedback, reacting to residents. What just very briefly, how is that going to work going forward? Because I know it's a stipulation, isn't it, in the kind of tranche 2 active travel fund of this kind of ongoing
I mean,
monitoring.
consultation is great if I understand the question, but consultation is great. We have no problem with that, but we need to understand that it's not a referendum. It's not a case of, 51% of people said they didn't like it, so it's done. It's not that. It's a consultation. This is going to be a neighbourhood that's more about people now. We've got too many cars in this area. Tell us how you think we should do that best. And I think that's the way to do it. It's really important here because this isn't a problem that can go away. It's health, it's climate change, it's all of these huge things. We don't have a choice. We cannot actually continue as it is. So the consultation and the Grant Chap's made that clear in his letter, that this is to make sure that you've heard the right views, not to give a minority the say in what happens.
Okay, so we're just slightly past 8 now, so it's just for me to wind up. Many thanks to all of our speakers. I hope it was interesting and engaging for all our attendees. We've had people explain things across the active travel spectrum, from living streets, interested in pedestrian matters, getting people onto bikes. John down in London, who's making real inroads, excuse the pun, with people centred streets, and of course Chris Boardman, who's doing the same up here in Greater Manchester. So our next meeting will be in March. We don't know the exact date or indeed the format, so just watch the usual channels to see when that will be. So thanks again for attending. Thanks to all the speakers, and have a great festive break, and see you all soon.
Thanks a lot, Nick. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for having me, everyone.